What's a city girl like you gonna do? You look like you've never even shared a stall, let alone mucked one out. The ranch hands chuckled, a rough, cruel sound that echoed off the weathered barnwood. Dr. Eris Thorne said nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't sigh, didn't so much as shift her weight. Her focus was absolute, a silent repudiation of the noise around her. Her gaze was locked on the source of the chaos, a 16-hand stallion of pearl-white muscle and terror, kicking splintered planks from the walls of its enclosure. The animal, named Ghost, was a living legend, the cornerstone of the Blackwood Ranch's entire bloodline, and he was seconds away from a career-ending injury. But when the owner, the old cowboy Silas Blackwood, saw the way she stood, not in defiance, but in complete, unnerving stillness, he knew the foreman had just made the mistake of his life. He wasn't watching a veterinarian. He was watching a master at her craft. If you believe that true strength is measured in results, not volume, type competence in the comments below. The foreman, Jed, was a man carved from oak and arrogance, his authority built on decades of loud commands and the assumption that his way was the only way. He saw Eris not as a doctor, but as an obstacle, an insult to his experience. She was slight, wore wire-rimmed glasses that seemed perpetually smudged with dust, and her hands, though deft, lacked the thick calluses he equated with knowledge. To him, her silence was weakness, her academic background a useless frivolity in a world governed by instinct and brute force. "We need to get a rope on him now, or put him down with a trank dart," Jed barked, his voice straining with a mix of fear and frustration. The other hands shuffled nervously, their confidence in their leader visibly cracking as the horse's panicked screams grew more frantic. Eris simply unlatched a small leather satchel, her movements economical and serene. She pulled out not a syringe or a rope, but a simple lead, its leather worn soft by years of use. Her calm was an island in a sea of escalating panic, a quiet anchor that seemed to defy the very physics of the crisis unfolding before them. Ignoring Jed's sputtering protests, Eris walked toward the stall. She did not approach with dominance, but with a kind of deliberate reverence. Her steps were not heavy or purposeful. They were a soft, rhythmic shuffle on the dirt floor, a sound that was immediately different from the heavy, threatening stomp of cowboy boots. The air was thick with the scent of hay, sweat, and the sharp, metallic tang of animal fear. The sound was a symphony of destruction, the crack of wood, the horse's terrified snorts, the frantic shouts of men who had lost control. Yet as Eris drew closer, she began to hum, a low, monotonic sound that barely carried over the din. It was a sound that had no words, no command, only a steady, unwavering vibration. Jed threw his hands up in disgust. "She's gonna get herself killed," he spat, turning to the other men as if to say, "I told you so," but the men were no longer looking at him. They were watching Eris, their expressions shifting from skepticism to a dawning, confused awe. She stopped just outside the shattered door, within range of the stallion's flailing hooves, and simply stood there. Her humming continued, a steady, patient rhythm that began to cut through the panic. Ghost, his eyes wide with white-rimmed terror, faltered in his destruction. He kicked one last time, then stood, sides heaving, sweat gleaming on his powerful flanks. Eris didn't move a muscle. She just watched, and she hummed. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The world seemed to shrink to the space between the woman and the animal. Then, in a movement so slow it was almost imperceptible, the great horse lowered its head. He took one hesitant step forward, then another. He extended his neck, not in aggression, but in cautious inquiry. Eris slowly, methodically, lifted her hand, not to his face, but to his shoulder, a place of partnership, not control. The horse flinched, but did not bolt. He allowed the touch. A collective, silent gasp rippled through the onlookers. In the aftermath of the storm she had just calmed, there was only the sound of a horse's trusting sigh and the deafening silence of a foreman's shattered ego. Silas Blackwood's boots crunched on the gravel as he descended from the porch. Every eye turned to him. He was a man whose presence commanded respect without ever needing to raise his voice, the living embodiment of the legacy Eris had just saved. He walked past Jed without a glance, his gaze fixed on Eris as she expertly began treating a gash on Ghost's leg, the stallion now standing as placidly as a lamb. The old cowboy stopped a few feet away, his shadow falling over the scene. His face, a roadmap of sun-creased lines, was unreadable. He finally turned his attention to his foreman and the assembled crew, his voice low but carrying with the weight of finality. "Jed," he said, the single word hanging in the air like a judgment. "You see a quiet girl in glasses, and you make an assumption. You see clean hands, and you assume they're weak. Your assumptions almost cost me my legacy today." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with shame and the profound weight of a lesson being learned the hard way. Silas continued, his voice a slow, deliberate cadence that listed accomplishments like a drumbeat of vindication. "That woman you dismissed? She's the one who rebuilt the foreleg of a Triple Crown winner with 3 pins and a prayer when every other vet said to put him down. She's the one the Army calls when their $1 million search and rescue animals are written off as too traumatized to work. They don't call her a doctor. They call her the Whisperer, not because she's soft, but because she knows how to listen to what's not being said." He paused, letting the words sink in. He then took a step toward Eris, who was still focused on her patient, oblivious to the drama she had just authored. In a gesture that stunned every man present, Silas Blackwood removed his worn, sweat-stained Stetson, holding it over his heart. It was a sign of respect so profound on that ranch that it was the equivalent of a king kneeling. "Dr. Thorne," he said, his voice now filled with a reverence that bordered on awe. "Thank you." The story of the day the ghost fell silent for the quiet doctor spread through the county like a prairie fire. It was told in diners, in feed stores, and over patched-together radio calls between distant ranches. The legend grew with each telling, cementing the image of the unassuming woman who could tame the untamable with nothing but her presence. The stall where it happened was repaired, but it was never called Stall 12 again. It was known, simply, as the Thorne Stall, a permanent landmark commemorating the day that loud, ignorant pride was brought to its knees by quiet, demonstrated competence. Visitors to the ranch would ask to see it, to stand in the spot where a living myth was born, a testament to the idea that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply needs to be present, and it will be recognized. Jed was a changed man. The event had sandblasted the arrogance from his soul, leaving behind a humbled, more thoughtful foreman. A few days later, he approached Eris by the paddock, his own hat held nervously in his hands. "Ma'am," he began, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I was wrong. About everything." He didn't offer excuses, only a simple, honest admission. From that day on, he became her most devoted student, watching her methods, asking questions, and replacing his bluster with a newfound respect for a different kind of strength. Eris, for her part, accepted his apology with a simple nod. She never mentioned the incident again. She didn't need to. Her victory wasn't in his apology. It was in the silent, daily proof of her work. She continued as she always had, a paragon of quiet professionalism, her actions speaking a language far more powerful and enduring than words ever could. A year later, Eris stood with Silas on the wide porch of the main house, looking out over the rolling hills. She wasn't an employee anymore. The old cowboy had made her a full partner, entrusting the future of his family's legacy to her steady hands. A new generation of foals, all sired by a healthy and calm ghost, grazed peacefully in the pasture. The ranch was thriving, its reputation now legendary not just for its horses, but for its revolutionary approach to animal husbandry, an approach pioneered by Eris. Silas watched her for a long moment, a gentle smile touching his lips. He remembered a conversation from her first day, when she had quietly confessed she'd never had a place that truly felt like home, a place to rest her head and belong. He gestured out at the sprawling, beautiful landscape, a kingdom of grass and sky. "This is your home now, Eris," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "A place for you. Forever." The greatest legacies are not carved in stone or shouted from rooftops. They are built in the quiet moments of undeniable skill, in the silent demonstration of a competence so profound it reshapes the world around it. Respect is not a prize to be won with loud proclamations. It is the natural echo that returns when true worth is put on display. A home is not 4 walls, but a place where that worth is finally and fully seen. Eris Thorne never needed to raise her voice, because her results created a roar that would echo for generations. Her story became the bedrock of the Blackwood Ranch, a reminder that the most powerful force in the world is not arrogance, but the quiet, unshakable authority of a job done perfectly. For more stories where quiet competence triumphs over loud ignorance, and where silent strength defines their worth, subscribe to Unknown Heroine Stories.